Thank you so much, my dear.
Electricity.
Yes. Wow, I don't even know if I can go on. I teared up so much with that. That was just so beautiful, Nina. Thank you so much. Thank you. And thank you, everyone, for being here. You honor me with your presence today. I really am humbled that you're all here to hear me today. I'm going to talk about a few of my favorite things in Unity teachings. Now, I tried to adapt, the song lyrics, but it just doesn't work to sing Affirmations and Denials, the 12 Powers, and Metaphysical Gadgets by Lowell Fillmore. Now, I know that you all are pretty adept at knowing about, here, I'm supposed to do this. Here we go. Did something happen? Oh, wait a minute. Okay, this way. This way. All right. This is the first time I have ever done a presentation. There we go. With a slideshow. So we're learning as we go. All right. I know that you probably know about affirmation and denials and the 12 powers, but a very little known teaching that is one of my favorites is Metaphysical Gadgets, and it was developed by Lowell Fillmore. And we'll get to that in a little bit. Laura asked me to talk a little bit about my journey. Well, my journey really starts with my mother. My mother is still a very special individual. When I was 6 and a half, we were about to welcome a new member to of the family to my mom and dad and I. And this is 1959. And my sister was born, but one of her lungs did not inflate. And so she was known as a blue baby, and she was put in an incubator. And this was really a life and death situation for our family. I think I should preface this a little bit in that my mom, I believe from childhood stories and things like that, she sort of had a love-hate relationship with the church. That that she believed, but then she didn't like the politics, and so I think there was sort of a love-hate relationship there to begin with. And she asked the chaplain at St. Luke's if he would be kind enough to baptize my sister, because she felt this was the only thing that she could do for this very small child who was very fragile. And the chaplain said, "Yes, I will baptize her. However, it's not going to do any good." And so my mother, being my mother, was really quite taken back by this. And Laura was baptized. And I don't know, we can't be in the mind of that chaplain to know whether he thought my mother was expecting a miracle or just exactly what my mother's expectations were. But I think we all agree that that was not the proper response. However, it triggered in my mother her search for spiritual teachings and things outside what you would call organized religion. And as a result, from the time I was about 7 years old, I heard about Edgar Cayce and all these wonderful teachings of Emmet Fox and the Unity teachings. Just everything came to me from age 7 on. So I never really had a chance to think of religion or spirituality in a different way, because this is how it was in my family. And we're a bunch of talkers. Oh my gosh, we'd sit around the table and a new idea would be thrown forward and we would talk about it. We'd hash it through and decide how we might feel about it, or, it was all thoughts were valid, excuse me. My mom is an astrologer, a numerologist, and she taught the power of the mind at Kirkwood. And I think there are some people here who took her classes and are familiar with her teaching style. Starting in my 20s, my mom went to spiritual retreat every summer. And by the time I was 25, I started going with them. And my very first spiritual retreat was in Northfield, Minnesota at Carleton College. And at that retreat, the Course in Miracles was introduced. And so at age 25, I was introduced to A Course in Miracles by Judith Scotch, who is one of the people who helped promote it. So that's a little bit about my journey. The thing that I think my mother taught me the most was discernment. Because when you're in a field where things can be very left or very right in spiritual teachings, it's important that you discern what is correct for you. And she said, don't swallow things hook, line, and sinker. You need to discern what you're being told. And if it doesn't feel right for you, then take that thought and put it up on a shelf in your mind. You may never call it down to help you or use it, but at least it's there. It's something that is a tool that you keep in your toolbox. And I think that's excellent, excellent advice, and it's something that has served me well, because sometimes I come up with ideas and I don't know where they've come from, and I believe they came from that shelf that I set up there all those years ago. Excuse me. Here we go. We're trying this again. If you come to my office, you will see this as my screensaver, and it says, I found this really, really old picture of you. This, for me, is a reminder that we are all points of light in the mind of God. You might call it the universe or infinite consciousness, whatever that might happen to be, universal substance. Whatever it is for you, I believe we are all that point of light. And I call it God because I'm comfortable with that term. God is so infinite and so vast that words and pictures are a pale representative of this concept. But I'm going to do my best to show you what I know God, aspects of God to be. This is a picture that I found that for me, if anybody sits next to me on Sunday, they know I say, thank you, Mother, Father, God. Well, here it comes from the Native American teachings of Father Sky and Mother Earth. God is without gender. We have both male and female aspects here on earth as our duality, but God has no gender. He's both Mother and Father, and sometimes we have to know this understanding, and I thought this was a beautiful representation of that. When I was looking for a physical representation of what I thought God and us are, a long time ago I was asked to speak about what God is to me. And since I know him to be, I'm sorry if I'm using a male gender, to me that's neutral, so excuse me for that. God is in everything, all things, rocks, minerals, plants, animals, including the human animal. And so when I found this picture of a fiber optic lamp, I thought, yeah, that's pretty, and that's kind of what we are, but it's wrong in that we don't have colors. We're not separated by colors. And so when we come to this and we look down upon a fiber optic lamp, I think this is how I see God, that we are points of light at the end of the filaments or silver cords. Okay. Affirmation and denial. This is from The Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore. And if you don't have this in your library, I would suggest that you get it, because it's something to be referenced when you have a word that comes into your remembrance and you think, why is that word popping up all the time? Charles gives you an idea of a metaphysical interpretation of that word. So I would recommend highly that everyone have this in their library, and we have it here in our library. Let me read to you. The sum total of thought in all the positive aspects compose the affirmations that bring ideas into form. Affirmations do not have to be made only as an I am statement. Denial is the mental process of erasing from consciousness the false beliefs of the sense mind, the five senses. Denial clears away false belief and thus makes room for the establishing of truth. By affirming truth, we are lifted out of false thinking into the consciousness of spirit. One of my favorite songs is Our Thoughts Are Prayers. And thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. So, when we say our thoughts are prayers, and we are always praying, our thoughts are prayers, listen to what you're saying. Seek a higher consciousness, a state of peacefulness, and know that God is always there. Then your thoughts become a prayer. That's really sweet, isn't it? It's really sweet and uplifting. But let's think about this. If we listen to what we're saying, seek anger, fear, sorrow, disorder, a state of discord, and forget that God is always there, well, every thought becomes a prayer. Not so sweet, but nonetheless true. Thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. For some of you who are scientifically minded, I want to bring to your attention the work of Dr. Masaru Emoto. I want to read here from the cover of the book because it says it much better than I can. Using high-speed photography, Dr. Emoto discovered that crystals formed in frozen water reveal changes when specific, concentrated thoughts are directed toward them. He found that water from clear springs and water that has been exposed to loving words shows brilliant, complex, and colorful snowflake-like patterns. In contrast, polluted water or water exposed to negative thoughts form incomplete, asymmetrical patterns with dull colors. The implications of this research creates a new awareness of how we can positively impact the earth and our personal health. Our bodies overall are composed about 60% water. Our heart and our brain are 73% water. So when we think and speak words that are uplifting, it influences our body. I don't know about you, but I would love to drink some peace and a thank you, and maybe even I would love to drink John Lennon's Imagine. And there's love, a lovely kind of shade of gold. But let's look at the one that says, I will kill you. I do not want that as part of my water system. I want those other things. You also see at the end that there is a before the prayer and after the prayer. So that what thoughts held in mind produce after their kind. All right, anybody who knows me knows that when this book came out for Lenten season, I was the biggest geek in town. I was giving this to everybody who would listen to me because for me, this was what affirmation and denial and the idea of fasting on pessimism and feasting on optimism. This is, for me, what affirmation and denial is all about. The pages 20, if you still have this, I don't get rid of this stuff. On pages 26 and 27, they were written by Ben Jameson, who's going to be our speaker next week. So if you still have this, open it to any set of pages and use those for your 2 days to say, well, for instance, this one says, I fast from worry. And the next day you fast on divine order, which is the power of the month. So, I'm sure everybody was like sick of me having these handed out to them, but couldn't help myself. 12 powers. All right. When I was hired, I brought my 12 powers cards here because I'd had them at my desk at the university, and I had a desk here, so I brought them along. And I noticed that the center didn't have 12 power cards. So at that point, I just started producing them monthly. And you can see them at the beginning of what rolls through. I don't have a slide of that, but what rolls through each week for what is the power of the month. You can find all 12 cards in the bookstore in front of the lovely, in front of the lovely display that Jan did for us of the 12 powers. So get your complete collection. They're there for you. And I chose this black and white instead of the colored one. I chose this one because it says at the top in his crown, I am Christ. And for me, that's a foundational teaching of unity, that Jesus, the Christed one, who is our way shower, lives in each of us. And when we choose our thoughts to bring that sacred energy to the front of our thoughts, that's what the 12 powers help us to do. So I invite you to take a set of cards home with you and to dream on them morning and evening. The 12 The Metaphysical Gadgets by Lowell Fillmore. I think this is really a little-known teaching, and it was Dick Andrews that introduced it to me when I was here. He was minister from 81 to 85, and this is my original Metaphysical Gadgets card that was produced by the Unity School of Christianity and sent out to us. You will see in your bulletins, I printed for you the 12 or the 13 of these, so you're available to use them. These were developed before the book was written. And the book that we're going to talk about is The Prayer Way to Health, Wealth, and Happiness. And it was written by Lowell. Let me see, where are we going? I chose a young picture of Lowell from 1910 because this is when he really started working in the Unity movement. Excuse me. Unity founders Charles and Myrtle had 3 sons, Lowell, Waldo Rickert, and John Royal. Lowell was the oldest and born in Pueblo, Colorado on January 4th, 1882. He became known for his clear ability to communicate the Unity message in speeches and spiritual writings. As a writer and editor of the popular Unity Weekly for more than 60 years, he had an immense impact on the proliferation of the Unity movement. Lowell did not pursue higher education after graduating from high school. He went to work immediately in the Unity movement and started even before that when he worked in the mailroom at wrapping parcels for distribution when he was 10 for 10 cents a week. In 1909, Lowell became the editor of Weekly Unity, a weekly paper started that year by Charles Fillmore as the official organ of the local Unity Society with news items, meeting schedules, and business reports. His Things to Remember column appeared in nearly every issue, and it ran for 63 years. In 1933, when Charles Fillmore wanted more time to write and travel, Lowell became head of the Unity School and began running the Institute's day-to-day operations. And in 1948, after his father's transition, Lowell became a Unity School president, a post he held until 1964. He was also named President Emeritus, and he was active at Unity Village until his transition in 1975. When Unity School was organized, Lowell was on the board of directors, taught Sunday school, served as a superintendent, helped his parents with Sunday service, was the first editor of Weekly Unity, and in 1910 he began to write Remembers. And he started his column out, the very first words he wrote were, remember to smile, remember to say a good word, and remember only good. In 1930, Remembers was compiled and published into book form, and I have a copy up here. In 1938, it was followed by New Ways to Solve Old Problems, and in 1952, Things to be Remembered, which was a continuation of Remembers. The foreword in this book is written by James Dillett Freeman, and it was written in 1964, so keep that in mind. I wanted to read a little bit here. As God's businessman conducting God's business, Lowell Fillmore has been coordinator of the practical and spiritual activities of Unity for more than 30 years, so that would be from 1934 to 1964. During this period of his direction, Unity has made tremendous growth. The work has moved from the old headquarters on Tracy Street in Kansas City to the beautiful setting and buildings at Unity Village. The circulation of the magazines has more than doubled. Unity has entered into the fields of radio and television, and in 1964, more than 70 stations carried the Unity Viewpoint radio program, and another 70 stations carried the Daily Word television program. As an aside here, when I was in high school, I always woke up early. I woke up with the birds. And of course, at that time, television, you had a test pattern really early. But on one of the stations here in town, after the test pattern and after the anthem, the daily word would come on. And that was my really first exposure to the daily word. And I am not sure which star. They got like famous people to read the daily word on television and broadcast this. But that was my first exposure to the daily word, hearing some famous person from Hollywood telling me what the word of the day was. And I was enthralled, just absolutely enthralled. 30 years ago, which would be in 1934, there were only a handful of Unity centers, and today there are almost 300. So in 1964, there were 300. There were almost no foreign work at all in 34, and in 1964, Unity is rapidly spreading around the world. And Lowell Fillmore has proved that gentle goodness is also good business. So. In this book, Lowell is a very relatable and humorous way of writing. He outlines how the Affirmations and Denials talks about how one of the 12 powers can relate to a topic and why we refer to Christ as our way shower. So I would encourage you, he also uses Bible quotes and Bible stories and anecdotes to bring these teachings to life. When people refer to books, I usually order them so that we have them here for us, but I didn't this time because his books are out of print. So if you want any of these books, you're going to have to go online and decide which book is right for you. When I looked, the range of cost was like $3 to $350. And so I just couldn't figure out what I should bring forth for you. So I'm encouraging you to go out and find your own copy. We're kind of getting, it's 1:45, so I'm going to go past this. I would like to put forth to you a 30-day challenge. Choose a metaphysical gadget that you have in your hand. Choose an affirmation or denial. Choose one of the 12 powers. Choose something and bring that into your consciousness. They say if you do something 30 times in repetition, it becomes a habit. So my challenge to you is pick something. Now I can hear this. I don't have time to put one more thing into my schedule. All right, here's some ideas for you. How about when you brush your teeth or wash your hands? If you put whatever you choose on a card and stick it on your mirror where you are doing an activity like that and repeat it to yourself, you've gotten in, 2 minutes of a new thought? I pin things to the visor of my card. So if I'm sitting at a stoplight, I have an affirmation right there that while I'm waiting patiently for the light to turn, I can reaffirm something new in my thoughts. How about the note function on your phone? Every one of you has a phone, I'm quite sure, and I'm sure it has a note function. Write your affirmation in your note function, and then as you're standing to return something at Walmart, you can read your affirmation. You've gotten some positive time. And when you add up those small little bits, you end up with having quite a significant number of moments thinking about a new thought. Now, I know that it's true that you teach what you need to learn. And this became very obvious to me as I was preparing this lesson today, in that I realized I was cursing my housework. I would come in my living room and I would say, I hate housework. Well, that came into my awareness, and I've decided that my 30-day challenge is to bless my housework, because I really do love an orderly house. I love that the things are vacuumed. I love, that things are straightened. I have a lot of projects. I have a mind that goes from here to there to there, so I have a lot of projects, but they could be orderly and tidy. And so, don't get me wrong, I do clean, but the thing is, it's what a 10-minute job might be. I put it off until I've got 2 10-minute jobs, and then I've got 3 10-minute jobs, and then I've got enough jobs to fill 2 hours, and that's what annoys me. So my challenge for me is to remember that I am going to take those small bits of time and bless my house, bless my clean house, bless my activities, and we'll see. I'll report back to you in 30 days if you ask me. So that's my challenge. So with that in mind, I would like us to move into meditation. The order, this is from the 12 Gifts from God by William Warch. The denial is chaos and confusion are hereby eliminated from my life. And the affirmation is, God is my life and is revealing my every next step right now. So if you'll get comfortable in your chair, put your feet on the floor, hands in your lap. Let's all take a very deep breath. Breathe in, breathe out. Relax and turn within. Ignore for the moment the sounds and sights, the outer stimuli coming in through the senses. Become aware of that vast universe of inner space in which you and I and all persons live and move and have awareness and being. Let your center of attention drop easily to the point just behind the navel, the physical center of the faculty of order. Christ in me is quickening my faculty of order. Christ in me is quickening my faculty of order. Divine order is established in my mind, body, and life. Divine order is established in my body, mind, and life. I am in tune with divine timing, and I let God create this day for me. I am in tune with divine timing, and I let God create this day for me. Divine order. I am in tune with divine order. Divine order. I am in tune with divine order. Thank you all for allowing me to share my thoughts today.